good afternoon, or good morning if you're further west of me, or good evening if you're further east of me. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is a Flabonga Monmouth Cube. And with me today, I've got a veteran of the show. I say veteran; he's been on once before. I've got Tony Stevenson. Hey, Tony. How's it
Hey,
going?
Dale. It's going well, mate. Thank you. Thanks for having
First
me
of all,
back on.
thank you for coming back. I said this before, I'll say it again. If people don't come on and talk to me, this show will get very dull and uninteresting very quickly. It'll just be me monologuing, and it'll probably get quite dark quite quickly as well.
I was going to say, would that go weird?
It would go super weird. It would go super weird. I'm liking the Tetris background you've got going on behind you.
Thank you, my friend.
It's
It is not chocolate. I have been asked on I got asked twice on the same call privately whether it was chocolate on my wall. It's actually soundproofing.
It's obviously soundproofing. Like, you've upped your game.
Yes, I have. It's made. You know what's funny? It comes in this packet, and it's really, really like thinly compressed, and you basically have to open it and then leave it for like several days before it carpet under a cot or something like that, and then you can stick it on the wall, and it helps to improve sound quality.
As an audiophile, someone who enjoys good quality audio, I appreciate the effort that you've made. And I know I'm not using my signature microphone and sound card today. That's because I had a complete brain fart and didn't bring it with me, so I'm using my standard headset. But no, I appreciate good sound.
We can't win every day, can we? But I appreciate the nod to the fact that you haven't been able to do that, and I can feel the pain in your eyes.
That's a constant state. All right, so we were at DAS last week. It was good seeing you, good seeing Dave and others from FreeAgent. How did you guys enjoy DAS this year?
Mate, it was belter. It was a belter. Yeah, really enjoyed it. It's always a good crack to get together with the FreeAgent team because most of them are based in Edinburgh, and I'm not. So every chance to get together with the gang is always well appreciated. But I think, being truthful, when DAS sort of was conceptualized, 4 or 5 years ago or so, I think I wasn't 100% certain that there was a gap for it. But I think I want to just give credit to Dan and to Jordan and to James and everybody that's involved with it, because there definitely was a gap for it. And I think it has turned into something really, really cool. And the quality of conversations that we had there, or that I had there. So I've worked pretty hard over the years to get myself off having to sort of do the demoing stuff and just being able to wander around and talk to everyone that I want to talk to. And I'm forever eternally grateful to FreeAgent for allowing me to just indulge my account tech inner nerd and just go and consume as many conversations as it was brilliant. Like 2 days of doing that is my sweet spot. So
I'm frustrated that you said that. The reason being, you said you wouldn't really understand that much. And my next question was going to be, what was the dumbest question you got on the stand? But you probably weren't there to. You weren't there to answer that.
I was on the stand a fair amount.
I know you were there a few times, but do you remember any daft conversations or daft questions where you just thought, I'm gonna have to hold my peace right now because this is a potential customer, but good lord.
Do you know what? No, actually, and that's probably a reflection of the quality of the place in the journey that the people who are at DAS are on. So there's a lot less what's cloud and a lot more where does this fit in. We're starting to sort of see the edges of some of the stuff we've already got in place. We already partner with you. We'd like to go deeper, that kind of stuff. Swerving the question slightly and offering up a funny anecdote. So somebody said to me, and I can't remember who it was. So they have the silent disco headphones,
they do.
And they have different colors for the stage that they're connected to. What it seems to be the case is that people pick these headphones up and wander off with them, assuming that they will automatically reconnect to the stage that they're sitting at, which is not the case.
They will not.
So somebody said to me before, if you've got, I did my talk last year and we came off and I overheard somebody sort of, as they were wandering off, saying, "It's a bit strange, like the conversation that we were listening to was about like diversity, and it was supposed to be about tech stacks, which doesn't really make any sense. But it was good, but like it just and it was a guy talking, and like it was a lady on the stage. So I'm not quite sure how that will fit together. And when we were doing our talk, me, Dave, and Russell, I was looking out, scanning through the audience to find, and there was one. There was a yellow in our sea of green, and I could just wondered what talk they were listening to and stuff. So I'll offer up a different anecdote, but that was probably my humorous highlight of the occasion, knowing that somebody was standing listening to us talk about tech stacks and being played something completely and utterly different in their head.
I feel like at some point you'd realise you're not hearing the words that are coming through your ears, right? Because like the words wouldn't even sync up.
You might think that was the case, but they stayed for the whole talk. So
because I did realise that you can move the headsets and you can press the button on the side and you can change the colour. Because I went to a seminar to learn some stuff and they ran out of seats and headsets, and I saw another seminar that wasn't as full. I went, I'm having that, and someone told me if you press the button it changes the colour. So yeah.
Question I got about that though. So I really like the silent disco effort. And some of them were, there was no headphones available, so I couldn't listen to the talk, which had I battled harder, I'm sure I would have been able to find some. But my question was like, how do you charge all those headphones? Like, they're all sat there. Surely they need to be charged every night somehow to pick up the signal. So that must be some giant bank of all these headphones, or do they just charge like individual batteries and go swap them over, or are they solar powered? It wouldn't be solar powered inside that. So
my guess is the headphones have an internal battery and they're designed to be charged in a charging station, industrial size, 15, 20 at a time. And the battery life is probably something like 3 days. It's ridiculous. It's got really good battery life.
Bit like your Magic Keyboard or your Magic Mouse, which
it's very low power. And probably they do standby mode when there's no audio going through them, so they have a good battery life. That's my guess. And they're probably designed specifically for events, and they probably come in like a big row or tray that when you just put them in, wireless charging or something like that, they have probably
I knew you'd have a sensible answer, mate. But
that's my guess.
Yeah. Back to your original question of was Das good? Yeah, it was really, really good. Really, really good. It's always good when like the industry gets together, but can't speak highly enough of it.
How did you find the 2 days going from 1 day to 2 day? Because I know from experience being on in a trade show as a vendor, it's hard work. Like as an attendee, I'm having a great time. I'm talking to people, shaking hands. I'm seeing your smiley face. I'm walking in everywhere. I'm taking a little leg rest, But like when you're on the stand for like 8-9 hours, or you've travelled up the morning from like 5 to be there at 7 to help set up. It's a long days. How did you find it having 2 days?
So I think that they had done as good a job as you can do to curate the content so that the content was not the same day on day. There were different headliners on day 1 and day 2, and I like the way that they'd got a really big talk on the main stage to sort of close out. I thought that was quite nice. There was there's always inevitably on day 2 a bit of a drop off in traffic, but it certainly wasn't catastrophic at all in terms of the people that we spoke to. So I think there's legs in it. I think if they wanted to create it into a 1 day one again, then they could easily do that. But I definitely think that there is enough there to push it over 2 days, and I could see the thought that had gone into making it a 2-day event, and also makes the after party more populated if it's a 2-day event, because people don't just shoot off straight afterwards, as I have been guilty of in the prior year. So.
Oh, we've all done it. If we can get home earlier and miss the commuter train, we will do it. I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Please humour me. I think I put it in the first post. I joked about how time flies. If time were to fly, how do you think it would fly? And if it were an animal, what kind of represents time? What animal would it be? I know it's a really dumb question.
No, so I think if time was going to fly, then time would probably fly business class, because is in this for a long time, right? Forever. So they've got to be comfortable in that. And I don't know why when you asked me that question, it didn't seem like a silly question. It seemed like a perfectly reasonable question. And if there was an animal that was going to represent time, I feel like it was a bird for some reason, but that might have been steered by your initial question about flying. But yeah, like, I don't know, some sort of like phoenix or something, because it's just eternally reborn, maybe out of like just it's always there, right? So I don't know if they're the right answers, but they're answers, and they were what came to me. So I guess that's my truth on the matter.
Kirsty Mitchell's commented.
Of course she has.
Time would fly.
Oh, of course it was. Sorry, I totally missed that one, didn't I? Yeah, that was the answer, wasn't it?
Why would time fly in a hopper?
So we have our road shows, right? And we did some in the spring, and last year we kind of rebranded them to have their own branding. So they are road shows, right? So we have a hover van, who is the sort of poster child of our road shows. I've been campaigning at a low level to see if we can get an actual hover van, like kind of wrapped, and then we can drive off around the country and make content and go to the various different roadshow locations, which hasn't yet been approved, but I am ever hopeful that it might do. I think it would have to be like a less of a hover van, more of a sort of style to look like a hover van, but with wheels rather than actual hovering, because that might be challenging.
If you made a hover van, you may have created an industrial revolution in transport because other people have tried.
I think there's flying cars though.
But
they're
like
not
this weird
like
helicopter
hover
things.
van.
Like they're not, they're like more like jet skis with like hovers on them. They're not like a proper vehicle. Yeah. So if you guys invented that, that would be a game changer for the world, not just accountancy and fintech. So
I think it would. So I think that failing business class, like domestically, definitely would travel in a hover van, but if they're traveling internationally, time would travel in business class.
Do you mind if I ask you a Jeremy Paxman style question, like straight to the camera, deadpan, kind of mean, super cruel?
Go on.
Even that's not my style. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to load the question as well, right?
Okay.
I'm sorry for being mean, by the way, in advance.
That's okay.
Some people dislike the product you represent.
Okay.
It's got a bad rep from some people.
Okay.
Why should I trust FreeAgent? After all, it's free. How good can it be?
That is a deeply loaded question.
Yeah, I know.
So, but very nice, and in some ways, because it gives me a good opportunity to sort of talk about why that might be. So you're not, what you've said is probably not untrue in certain corners of our community. And commonly the reason for it is that if you look back to history, so FreeAgent started life as a contractor's product, and it was focused predominantly on the end user, with a sort of accountant and bookkeeper focus was secondary. And what we did over the years was really lent into that, and made the experience for the contractor and then subsequently the micro, and now we're heading into sort of the small end of small, really, really, really good. And our NPS is consistently 75, depending on what X section you look at, but on average 75, some places higher.
Sorry, NPS is Net Promoter Score, right?
Yes, so that is basically how much do you love us? 50 is like really, really good. And it's a scale of 100 to minus 100. So 75 is like off the charts good. Right?
So like Apple have like a score of 80 or 90, and like Apple, well-known brands got a good high score.
So, but then our equivalent NPS on the practice side has always been, historically it was quite a lot lower, and gradually it's sort of crept up towards like really good, but not quite the level of our end user score. So what has happened, and that was I don't know if predominantly is the right way of putting it, but I think that was a symptom of us really leaning into the end user experience, and this accountant stuff kind of was the secondary focus, whereas in the last sort of 2-3 years that's really flipped around, and we've kind of gone, right, okay, so we really need to lean much more into the accountancy and bookkeeper stuff. Like, how do you do this well for one client is not the same as how do you do it well for 100 or for 1,000, right? And that's the scaling piece. So we have made some serious inroads into that experience, and we've got some really exciting stuff sort of coming in the coming months as well that will really help to take chunks out of the things that commonly accountants say, like, do you know what, I really love using FreeAgent for sort of 80-90% of the time, but then actually when we get to this 1 or 2 things or 3 things or 5 things that we'd like to do, that we do regularly, it doesn't do it quite how we'd like it to do. So a good example of one of those things would be like change of year end, for example, has always been a bit tricky in FreeAgent.
That doesn't really work in many softwares, to be honest. I'll give you some that one.
No,
it's not
exactly.
Great in any of them.
It's not exactly. So an opportunity to surprise and delight. So that is in beta testing at the moment. So the ability to be able to change the date of your year end, obviously that will feed into basis period reform and that kind of stuff. So so my retort to that question, the 2 parts of it would be, have you looked at it recently, and have you really kind of tested it, would be my question. And quite often the answer is no. I had a conversation, I'm sure he won't mind me name dropping him in this scenario, but I had a really in-depth conversation with Ryan Piercy,
Don't say his name. He might appear.
He might.
He's like
appear,
Beetlejuice. He might appear.
Yeah.
Like there's another guy he associates with, JT. We'll call him JT for short. You say his name, sometimes
yeah.
he just pops up. So let's not.
Just on the screen as a presenter, not in the comments. Yeah,
That happened last time. Not with you, but happened another time. I said his name. Actually, I was talking to Zoe. I was talking to Zoe Lacey Cooper, and we're talking. Mentioned his name. He's like, Dale, let me on. I was like, okay. So he appeared. It was quite funny. Sorry. Please continue.
We'll wait for him to spring up. And he came to us and said, look, I haven't looked at you guys for a long time. Let's have an in-depth chat about it. And we did. And he was like, do you know what? Like, thanks for being honest about where the stuff you're looking to improve is. But, that's a million miles from where I thought the product was. And actually that commonly sort of held, I know what FreeAgent's like, but you knew what it was like in 2017. And actually we've done a lot to it from then. And then the sort of free point. So how it works is that if you are a NatWest customer, then NatWest essentially subsidizes the cost of the software on your behalf. So actually it's not free. It's just that you don't pay for it. Somebody else pays for it on your behalf if you're a customer. We still have probably what would seem outwardly to be a surprising amount of people that pay for FreeAgent on the basis that you can get it for free sometimes with free bank accounts. So it isn't free.
You get it with Metal as well.
You do still get it with Metal. Yes, yeah, you do, yeah. And Metal continues to gather pace. And what's really cool, mate, is
by the way, I prefer Metal over NatWest. I shouldn't say that, but I am.
Mate, you're entitled to your opinion. They're both part of the same group, so I'm sure no one will be offended. So the cool thing about Metal is like the depth of that integration. So like, you've always kind of like banking, accounting, and there's a sort of a barrier in between. We've got bank feeds and we've got maybe a few bits and pieces that integrate. So that sort of barrier is being taken down piece by piece. So you can imagine this sort of blended experience of I paid for something on my card and I wanted to attach a photo of it and I attached it and that appeared in my accounting software through magic, rather than me having to then kind of take it off and then do it somewhere else. I can just do it in my banking app if that's the one I use predominantly. Things like tax timeline, tax reminders, kind of appearing in both apps. And, we continue to deepen out that relationship so that experience is really blended into being.
I get it. FreeAgent's awesome. I get it.
Yeah.
I think my internet is messed up because there's now an epic delay as to when you are speaking as when I'm speaking. So
is there?
Apologies for that. I need to ask you. Yeah, there is. I need to ask you a daft question just to balance this out.
Go for it.
What is one old person thing that you do?
Does wear Crocs count as that?
Yeah, wearing the Crocs. And since you shared, I'll share mine. I will turn on Radio 1 and not recognize 99% of the artists on there.
See, I've refused to go to anything other than radio. I don't listen to a lot of radio, but I've refused to move to anything other than Radio 1's the only station I listen to. So I probably identify about at least 15 to 20% of the music on there. You're doing well. I turned 40 last year, so it's a topic that's on my mind on a daily basis.
And I have to ask you, turning 40, because I know you have a fitness, like we're lifting weights. How them stats looking on the big five, man? Your bench, overhead press, your row, your deadlift, and your squat. How they looking?
So I have always sort of prided myself on ignoring and pushing back against the adages of time when it comes to fitness, right? So I like to see it as a challenge rather than as an encumbrance to staying fit and being strong and all that kind of stuff. And we've talked about this at length, right? I was absolutely adamant that I was not going to give in to that on becoming a parent, and which failed miserably at it. Failed absolutely horribly miserably at it, right?
Yeah.
And I've had a word with myself in the last sort of couple of months, and I'm now starting to sort of head back in the right direction. So I put on about 20 kilos, and now I'm about a third of the way through getting back to my fighting weight, which is about 100 kilos, which has made me feel a hell of a lot better. And that has been underpinned by a bit more gym, but just a lot better food choices. So the answer to your question is like, it hasn't gone great, but I've sort of, I think, realized that what was at the root of that, which is just entirely my own stubbornness. So I'm good at go to the gym, but I'm only good at go to the gym when it's on my terms, which is I want, plenty of time either side and like a nice window, no interruptions, nobody coming and asking me to do this thing because they need help right now. And like 45 minutes to do, like what is probably about a 20-minute workout, but spread out with a bit of scrolling and a bit of, kind of mucking around and whatever. And I've realized that if I want to sort of continue down that track, that I need to drop that and basically just accept that it has to be squeezed in wherever. It is never going to be perfect, but doing some is always better than doing none. And that, realistically, am I going to get 5 workouts in a week like I'd like to? No, because I've proven to myself again and again and again that is very difficult to do, particularly with
especially with a 16-month-old, right?
Yeah, so she's there's a lot going on, and work's really busy. We've got tons of stuff kind of crammed into that sort of event season. This first half of the year has been really, really hectic. The last 6 months have been really, really hectic. So,
I'm not sure
short
why,
answer,
like a lot of the events have like you say, they've been crammed into the first 4 months, 5 months of this year, right? This has all just been like back to back. That's and Countx in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks, ZeroCon, like just Fab have all been at the same time.
Yeah. Alternative events as well. We should give Zoe a shout out. We also had our road shows, our platinum events, and loads of other stuff going. We launched a community in that time and all these kind of things. So,
hear me out. Sorry for interrupting.
Add another one. We should start our own accountancy conference and add it in the springtime.
No. Yeah. No. I haven't got the patience or the organizational skills for that. No, I was going to say, hear me out. This is how my brain works. We're talking about weightlifting and stuff. Often, when it comes to raising money for charity, people do lots of cardio stuff. I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do a 5K. I'm going to Tough Mudder. We should do a weightlifting, like combined. Like how many kilos or tons can we lift within a space of a month? And we could record how much people bench, squat, whatever. And if we reach a certain ridiculous tonnage, because for people like me, I don't know about you, I don't like cardio. It's so boring. Respect to those that do it. Sorry, but if we could do like a charity goal, where it's like how much tonnage can you do in a month?
Mate, that's quite a good. I think perhaps that the reason people do the cardio one is because it's quite relatable, isn't it? So it's like as soon as you start to walk or to run, you immediately feel the pain of that exercise, and therefore it's very easy to relate to why that is hard. And perhaps if you're not a weightlifter, understanding how painful it is to do whatever is heavy for you and stuff that it perhaps is slightly more difficult to relate to, I guess. Maybe if you're not,
the barrier to entry is easier as well, isn't it? Almost anyone, most people can walk compared to like learning how to do a squat properly or deadlift properly. It's a bit different. You're right.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe we could make it.
I think that you're right. So my wife and I raised some money for charity in 2021. I think it was. We had a holiday to Cyprus cancelled because of COVID, but we were allowed to move around the country, so we decided that instead of going and sitting by the pool for a week, that we would climb the 3 peaks in 48 hours and then immediately following that walk across the whole country along Hadrian's Wall, which was and we did that whole thing in like 7 days, which was pretty cool challenge. Yeah, it was. I was pretty sore by the end of it, if I'm not going to lie. And we did. So it's normally a 6-day walk. The Hadrian's Wall walk. It's about 80k, but you wind a bit. So it's 80 miles. So you wind a bit. So it's ended up being 210 kilometers that we did across the course of a week. The last 2 days is supposed to be sort of like 10 miles into Carlisle, and then it's 15 miles out the other side. So that would be day 1, and then the 15 miles would be day 2. I said to my wife, we should just do the last 2 days as one, because I always had this thing with sponsorship. It's like, it needs to be hard. Like, I need to know that the thing you're doing is really hard for you, and then I'll because you get asked for sponsorship all the time, right? And that's, or it needs to be a really good cause. Ideally, both of those things, right?
Because I know you a little bit. I don't trust you when you say it needs to be hard, because you're someone that likes burpees. You're
Yes,
the
true.
0.001% that likes burpees.
Yeah,
So when you say hard, it's got
yeah.
to be something ridiculous, because no one, apart from you and like 3 other people I know,
And the whole of
likes
CrossFit.
burpees. I just,
Yeah,
yeah, goddamn
yeah.
burpees.
That was yeah. Do you know what? Yeah, it's been a long time since I've even done one. And
And the
it's
rest of your team know that you almost broke the world record as well, right? They know that.
so
'Cause
no. I'm
to
sure
everybody.
some. So do you know, it's interesting. Like we got into this. I don't even think we did get into this last time actually, because I seem to remember getting a message from you afterwards going, we didn't even talk about burpees.
Yeah, you almost set the world record for the number of burpees done in a minute or 2 minutes or something like that.
One minute it was. So it's
Yeah.
so during lockdown, I decided that it would be a fun challenge to see if I could break a world record. And so I decided that burpees would be like a good thing to do because I've been doing a bit of it, and I was like the field of competition is going to be extremely low for exactly the reason you just said. Everyone hates burpees, right? And I was to some extent right, I guess. And obviously, you need to be a bit of a lunatic to even think that something like that was a good idea. So my game was to try and find one that I thought I could break. And initially, I started looking at like the long distance ones. Some people do them for like 24 hours or 12,000 burpees in 24 hours, that kind of thing, which is like lunacy. But I realized after a little while that my composition and weight probably wasn't going to allow me to be able to train to that level of
I'm glad you said that, by the way, 'cause I
endurance.
was thinking it, but I was like, how do I say that nicely?
No, like you needed to be. It would have needed to have changed my shape, and
Yeah,
then
you're a big guy.
yeah, and I was like, hold on a second, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to train? Because I said it's still a world record, whether it's 24 hours or 1 minute. So I'll probably just train for the 1 minute one because that feels like a lot easier. So I started training for it, just on my own, and that was always like the thing in my head was like, could I do this on my own? And mate, do you know what? And so to fast forward to the end, I don't hold a world record. I did beat the standard that was required for the record. So the record was 30 chest ground burpees in 1 minute. I did 31, and I've got a really shonky video of me doing it, but you can't see my full body. You can only see my head. Like, so I didn't film it properly, and that was because it was just it was a training attempt. It wasn't like a. But the reason that I don't hold the record is because, well, partly because you need to go through some really stringent assessment stuff, but the setup that you need in order to get it like officially verified was administratively beyond me. So, for example, not allowed to do it in your home gym, has to be in like a sort of public place of gymming, which I kind of did have, and then you need to find
a little like bubble just came up on your screen. What is that?
I know. I'm not really sure, to be honest, but
is that something your screen does? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, you haven't seen
That's
that?
really cool. No.
Have you seen these ones?
Oh, okay. I didn't know you could do that on StreamYard. Like,
I didn't know you could either. I only thought you could do it on. Yeah, that's awkward, isn't it?
isn't it just?
I know.
Like, it's my show and you're flashier.
You need reactions turned on, and then you need to have the right type of screen, I think, as well as the right type of camera. So, and there's a whole bunch of different ones that they don't tell you how to do them, so you just kind of got to work it out. But I think we've covered all of them. So
I just realized I could have been blowing my background the whole time, looking a lot better.
You could.
Sorry.
Yeah, we got waylaid. Yeah, anyway, so I kind of fell short of the administrative burden of kind of getting the whole attempt set up, and then life kicked back in, the world came back to life, COVID kind of not came to an end, but you know, like we were back out, I was playing rugby again, and it just sort of faded away, and my fitness and stuff and my interest in it dropped off. But I did beat the standard. I've got it on a video somewhere, and you know, it's fascinating the stuff you learned from the whole process, like getting into the different sort of energy systems and how to train them. Because I thought, well, I know what to do. Like, I'll go on an assault bike and I'll basically just train to blast a minute on the assault bike, which is like borrowing from the next 10 minutes worth of energy and sucking it all into 1 minute, and then, you know, hammering that out.
That's not how it works.
No, but you can't. So it's really difficult, because what I thought was, it's like, well, I just do minute blocks of burpees, or minute and 10 blocks of burpees, and then eventually I'll just get, like, you know, my stamina will increase. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. You can only reasonably do one red line minute of burpees, and then even if you're incredibly fit, which I was at the time, you can't do another one to the same standard. And even if you drop off 10 or 20%, you're not really training it. You've gone to failure. So you had to sort of build up from, I need to get comfortable doing 10 seconds at red line, 20 seconds at red line, 30 seconds at red line. And even then you go in some days. I remember once going in the gym, started my training session. I was just like, no, I just haven't got it today. It's not there.
Have you had your first barbecue of the year yet?
Yes. I want to say yes.
You say yes. You're not.
I want to say yes. I think I have, but I can't. I'm going to say no because it's not sticking out in my mind. But yeah, I don't think I have. No, have you?
I have.
Yeah. What did you cook?
I just some basic chicken marinade, nothing exciting, and then some burgers and sausages. It was I think the first or second week of March, and we had like a random good day of weather, and I was like, let's make good use of this. So yeah,
immediately
whacked out that barbecue. It was cold outside, but the sun was shining, and yeah, we got some good stuff grilled. It was tasty. It was tasty.
I've got a question for you. Do you know? I want to make sure I get his name right. Duran Hamer from Sift.
I do not.
Analytics. So I had the pleasure of meeting Duran and spending some time with him just before DAS and then during DAS as well. And we got to talking about braai and barbecue. And I sort of described my dream setup with these 7 different barbecues, pizza ovens, and like a long pit and all this sort of stuff. And he basically just was like, "Oh man, this is awkward." I was like, "Why?" So I've already got that sort of. So I got a big green egg. I've got pizza oven. Yeah. I've got a custom-made souvlaki spit, like that just automatically. Yeah. He's got 6, a Weber.
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Mountain.
2 or 3 others. Yeah. And he's like, I pretty much cook on open fire every night. I'm like,
why is barbecue so tasty? Why is it so delicious?
I don't know, mate. I don't know. It's the smoke, I think. Well, I don't know if it's actually not, and it's just that it feels like it is because you put so much effort into each bite, right?
I tell you what, I asked the question. I think I already know the answer. I think it's because when you cook on barbecue, whether it's coal or gas, as you cook, the fat from the meat specifically goes down and it re-evaporates, so it kind of like goes back into the food. So it's a flavor that you don't get from oven cooking or just regular grilling. It's like the temperatures and the way the food is actually cooked. I believe that's
definitely right. I definitely think that is true. But I think that I went and did a barbecue course, a couple of them actually, with a guy. His name is Marcus Borden, and his moniker on Instagram is Country Wood Smoke. So he's like one of the original UK barbecue guy. Really, really nice guy. And he said like problem like people have with barbecues, they over smoke things. So they think like if I just stick more and more wood on to smoke, it'll just, the more smoke the better. And he said, I always think of smoke like a seasoning. It's like salt, pepper, smoke, and it should be a hint, not
agreed.
Absolute. Your food shouldn't taste like a wet barbecue. So
speaking of LinkedIn,
yes,
how are you finding it? Because I think this time last year you said you had a goal to reach a certain amount of followers, or was it a certain amount of followers? Is that right?
So there was this. So that's a never-ending goal. The goal I probably had them as I wanted to reach 1 million impressions. Yeah. So I'm about 4/5 of the way to that now. So
okay,
it's heading in the right direction. I don't know, mate. Like it's an ever-changing beast, isn't it? And I feel like there's been a lot of I don't want to use the word negative changes to how the platform operates over the last sort of few months. And I guess it sort of depends whether you care about vanity metrics or whether you're just more bothered about your inputs rather than the outputs. So
I'm intrigued. Please continue. So how do you think it's changed, and not for the better?
So they made some changes to the algorithm so that your posts generally do worse in terms of impressions than they did previously. So if you've noticed, if you look back at what your posts were gathering sort of this time last year, so they made quite a detrimental one in September time, I think it was, and then another one at the beginning of this year, which made it even worse. So their argument is you'll get less impressions, but you'll get more interactions because we're showing it to better people. I think the belief is that ultimately they need to kind of free up space in the feed for more ads so they can make more money. Is the sort of working hypothesis, but yeah, it's interesting. I definitely found that I get two types of posts, I think, that generally tend to go quite well. One is some sort of story that involves some searing honesty. So I had one recently about my exam failures when I was an accountant, which went, I wouldn't say viral, but it did well. I did one the back end of last year, which was about my training at the Big Four. And that was by far the best post I've ever done in terms of impressions and reactions and comments and all that sort of stuff, right? So
I can relate. My best engaged post this year is the one about me vomiting at Daz.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, it was just me.
Can you bring the story? Can you bring the story to life?
No. It's not funny, Tony. It's me being vulnerable. I have a ridiculous phobia of public speaking. Phobia because it's completely irrational. And
given what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Yeah.
And so I volunteered to speak at Daz. I said, I'd like to speak on this subject. And I was nervous the day before, quite anxious the day before, anxious the day of. And about 25 minutes before I had to speak, I was like, something's not right. So I go to the bathroom, chunder everywhere. And then went to deliver my presentation.
And how did the presentation go?
I'm biased, but I don't think it went very well. It was supposed to be a half an hour talk, and I spoke super duper quickly, and it lasted maybe 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get your points across?
I think so.
Did you find there were smiling nodders in the audience? Did you see any different coloured headphones?
A few people nodded. People came up and asked questions afterwards, and a few people asked for the slides afterwards. So I'll take that as a good sign.
Oh, that's definitely a good sign, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get any sort of often there'll be like a key slide you put up, and then all the phones come out and they start.
Yeah, that happens. That happens.
Yep, that's good. Always a good sign.
I had one like a negative, I don't know, like a nitpicky kind of person at the end asking questions, and it's like, yeah, man, like just nothing's perfect. Chill.
Proved that they listened and cared.
This is true.
Yeah, mate.
So yeah,
I've had I don't know if lucky is the right word, but very fortunate that FreeAgent have put me on a lot of stages and trusted me to represent the brand and the team many times. And I've had some great ones and some not so great ones. And I have had consistently people fall asleep in my speeches.
Seriously, like you look out and you can see that their eyes are
closed. Yeah. Normally like one maybe, and it'll normally be if it's sort of an earlier morning one after like on day 2 of the conference. So maybe they've had a few too many wines at the free bar.
You can't take that personally though. That's on them, isn't it? That's not.
No, I'd like to make a little bit of a joke about it. If they're fast asleep, then maybe we can have a little bit of a laugh about it in the audience. But maybe I'd take it as a compliment that maybe I should be doing sort of like voiceover for sleep app or something like that.
Like ASMR kind of. This is the voice of Tony Stevenson. This is relaxing. Yeah.
Exactly right. And I think that mate, first like props for getting up and doing it, because you push yourself to do something that you like by your own admission found taxing mentally, right? So you push yourself through it, and most people don't do that. Most people just go, nah, I don't do that, I just want to hide. It definitely gets easier. Definitely gets easier. And I would say that this round so I did at DAS was probably the first time that I've done a like a bigger speaking thing where I've not been sort of bit hoppy beforehand kind of thing. I don't get too nervous, but mine is mainly like I'm gonna get the time wrong, and I'm gonna be off talking to somebody, and everybody's gonna be like, "Where's Tony?" which is not beyond the realms of possibility. But I think maybe I'm lucky in that what happens to me, which doesn't happen to everybody, is that I get slightly nervous beforehand because I just want to do a good job and want to make sure that I hit the mark and add some value, and that people think that was something interesting to listen to. But as it starts to get right into that, like we're just about to do this now, something in my brain goes, brilliant, like this is great, let's go do this. And not everyone gets that, but I kind of know that that will happen to me because it always does. And I've been doing it long enough to know that, you know, when things go wrong, or I skip a slide, or someone falls asleep, or whatever, that I'm sort of quite comfortable with that, dealing with that when I'm up on the stage. So yeah, mate, props to you. I'm going to go back and find that post now, and I'm sure that there's probably most of the people here going to listening to us, if there's people out there probably doing it right now.
Question for you, delving into your past. You used to work for Xero. What is the difference between working for Xero and working for FreeAgent from a cultural perspective?
What a question! What a question!
Right?
So they're both SaaS companies, right? And we're both selling into the same space. And I think that there's a bunch of similarities around the two companies in that we're both, like, broad headlines, sort of doing a similar thing. I joined weirdly at almost identical places in the trajectory of the user base, within almost to the 1,000, which is quite strange, I guess. Both in that sort of scale up phase, which is where I sit the best. I like there to be some sort of structure, but lots of opportunity to go and kind of do new things, but from a structure, not just like let's all put fires out all day, as you get with the scrappy startup phase. I think that the difference is such a difficult question. The Xero experience was like, it was great, right? It was the first time I'd enjoyed going to work. I loved working there, and I met some brilliant people who've gone on to do incredible things in our industry. Tons of people whose names you will know, who all sort of came out that same era. And I think that the difference probably was that back then it was a relatively new thing, in that no one was really doing the cloud thing. So it was a change between desktop and cloud, or nothing and cloud. And the story was huge. So like Rod's story, and you know, and how he just wanted people to spend more time on the beach, and bank feeds, and all of that kind of stuff, right? And that was like the driver at the time, was the story. It's very story led, very brand led, very kind of like get on the bus type approach. And that served really, really well for that stage of the market. At FreeAgent, I joined obviously sort of later in that evolution. And probably when I was at Xero, there wasn't a lot of when I started, they were like, you know, there's no training, right? And I was like, yeah, like, of course there's no training, but like, there'll be training. Like, someone will show me, because I, like, by my admission, didn't know how to use the product. I'd never used it, and I was quite open about that. I was a tax guy, right? I'd never used accounting software. And the other guys that started similar time to me had used it extensively. But they had to go off and do their job. We still hadn't really clearly defined what the job was.
Because wait, you were a partner consultant as well, which was
so actually it was partner enablement originally, which became partner consulting while I was there. So
my understanding is partner consultants generally were people who've used it in industry and practice and can help other practice users adopt it, right? Whereas the business development team with the sales guys or sales team.
So I wasn't. Right? We worked closely with them, but that wasn't my role. I was an implementer, right? And they took a bit of a punt on me on the basis that they were finding it hard to find people that wanted to do the job at the time, because it was still, you know, less than 100,000 users, and it was you know, it was a real sort of challenge, kind of convincing people to move to the cloud. And there wasn't a lot of like I said, structure internally, and there wasn't a lot of kind of like, this is how we sort of make our employees' lives great. It was just everyone was just, the phrase we used to use was like, you know, in cartoons, we're like hanging off the front of the train, and they're building the track as you go along, kind of thing. Yeah, like that was sort of what it felt like, right? It was really full on, and there wasn't a lot of support. It was very much just like, just gotta go do it, and you know, we need to go get on with it, and that was great, and we all learned an awful lot from it. I don't think I'd have lasted in that environment doing it the same way for much longer than I was there, which was a couple of years. FreeAgent, obviously, it's a more mature market, so those conversations aren't so much going from no knowledge of cloud at all to this new way of working. It's more about, well, I'm much more educated about the different packages that are out there. So there's a lot more of a, detailed conversation to be had about how that kind of fits in. The support from like the business in terms of how they look after their staff at FreeAgent is just off the charts good. It's just such a good place to work, and even you always start with, we get Fridays off in the summer, right? So I was explaining this to my best mate the other day, and he was just like, but that must be included in your holiday allowance. I was like, no, that's extra on top of our holiday allowance.
Wow.
We get to take our bank holidays whenever we want, so we don't have to work on a bank holiday if we don't want to. All this kind of stuff, and like the support in terms of the way you look after the staff. The culture is like, we work really hard, and it continues to ramp in terms of all the stuff we're just trying to get on with. But there's a culture of, we work during the hours of working, and I've never worked anywhere that's so regimented of like a kind of a, right, when the day is done, everybody just logs off. There's never any expectation to get like in touch with people outside of work hours, unless it's like a Countex or something, or you do what I did the other day, which was booked half a day off and then took a whole day off, not realizing I'd only booked half a day off. And Stuart, my boss, rang me and was like, how's your day been, Tone? Because I think he got a bit of an inkling as to what I'd done. And I was like, yeah, it's been really good. We've been at the hospital with Laura. And he was like,
should have been at work.
I've been at work this afternoon. I was like, no, I'm off today. He was like, yeah, this morning. I was like, no, all day. I was like, I'm sorry.
So if I've understood you correctly, when I asked you the question, the difference between Zero and FreeAgent and working there, not such a simple answer, because you're working there at different times, at different stages of the industry. Zero, shiny, new, exciting, lots of buzz, and about the story, the narrative. FreeAgent, more established market. So whilst competitors, the market's different, so the experience has been different. Is that right?
Yes, that is definitely true, and I think that not in terms of comparisons, but it was very sort of personality and like individual led during my time at Zero, whereas at FreeAgent we've got like our process for how we do things internally in terms of how we manage working with our partners, how we bring them in is like really, really good. And I'm sure that there'll be a ton of other software guys that if they got under the hood of like kind of how we do things at FreeAgent would be with their notepads taking notes as to like, oh wow, that's some of a lot of the challenges that we face along the way of trying to engage. No, I can't give away all the secret sauce, mate.
Secret sauce.
Yeah,
I have to ask, don't I? I have to ask.
What I will say is that it's a case of having the right people focused on the right jobs at the right stage of our partner's life cycle, and it's amazing the difference it makes to have, like say, the right people doing the right jobs at the right time in the right process, and looking at it from a bird's eye view, and rather than looking at it on a individual per partner basis, you're able to have much more effect when you're able to sit back and kind of go, look, this is what we're seeing, and therefore we need to do something about that for all of the people that are experiencing that problem, rather than it just being just one person or one partner that's experiencing that problem. And I think that carries over into like a sort of a what we call a high touch. So lots of less sort of partners per account manager, a lot less shifting around, which we don't do much of, and which we will get commended on almost on a daily basis, because that's not necessarily always the case throughout the market. And I understand the reasons why, that we've taken a slightly different approach, and it really does seem to pay dividends in the longer term as to those longer term partnerships. So it's difficult comparison, like both brilliant places to work, but very, very different in terms of despite being similar customer numbers, very different in terms of the way that the maturity of the underlying business and how much you're looked after at FreeAgent, whereas at Zero it was a bit more of a just go make a dent. Go for it.
You said when answering the question, you mentioned you being at Zero and the era, and you mentioned like the kind of people you worked with.
Yes. Do you want me to drop some names?
No. What do you think this season's era is? What's the next evolution? What's the next step? So you talked about bank feeds and that being the buzz at the time. It's now almost a decade later. I exaggerate, but
15
years, 10 years later.
No, 15 from the original days. Yeah, from original bank
those days to now. So what's the buzz? What's the evolution of fintech now?
I think that it's an interesting one that I give quite a bit of thought to, and I oscillate on, do I spend lots of time navel gazing on this matter, or should I just kind of get on with stuff that needs to be done? And I think I find a decent balance somewhere in the middle. So there's two bits to that. There is the fintech side, right? So there's that, and I always forget who it was that said it, that sort of, we're in this constant state of bundling and unbundling of software, right? So like what happens is you end up with this big behemoth that people don't want to pay for, and then they take little bits out of it, and you build your little stack up, and then it starts to go in the opposite direction, and you start to go, accounts payable, accounts receivable, cash flow, that could all be in one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And then you get, I'll give Henrik and Mimo a shout out, like, that's a problem that they're tackling. They're going, right, well, there's 2 or 3 other bits of kit that we do all of those things, or we're going to do all of those things, right? So I do think there will be some of that. Obviously, there's been quite a lot of acquisition of, these sort of smaller add-ons that have, have been bought up by Sage and, HG Capital and all that kind of stuff. So there is definitely some consolidation and some bundling. Which is happening, and I think that what I've seen is that the practitioners out there who've been in this game for a little while are now starting to go, yeah, do you know what? We add 20 bits of kit, 50 bits of kit, right? And actually, if we're really truthful and honest with ourselves, we haven't really implemented any more than a handful, possibly even none of them, to the fullest or almost fullest of capabilities. So really what we need to do is kind of go back and say, right, doors are closed, or they're closed unless it's something exceptional that really fills a gap that we really know we've got and we're confident that we can implement this well. Divest some of the bits of kit that we've already got and really go back to first principles of like, what are actually the problems? Because 10 years ago, the problems seem to be sort of the same as the problems are that we've got now, which is pricing and collecting data from clients, right? And making sure that our bookkeeping health is good, and the same perennial problems that we've made dents in, but then as things evolve, the problems resurface in slightly different ways. So I think there definitely feels like there's a sort of a higher bar, and that if you're coming into the market now, you're going to have to be on your game, tight, good with partnerships. You're going to have some element of community, which I think is really something that's starting to proliferate through our, through our world. And, and in order for practitioners to really kind of get to grips with this stuff, like less is more. And we want to get through failure to implement, and we want 10 bits of kit that are implemented really well, not 50 bits of kit that aren't implemented really well that we're paying for. Richard Sargent put some nice stats out as part of his accounting web research, and he drew on them in his panel session about vendors and accountants and how they interact, and bookkeepers, of course. And he said that software spend's gone from 4.5% to 7.5%, or 5% to 7.5%, something like that of overall revenue. Which, if you're a practice and you're at the sort of 10% margin end of things, that's quite a lot of money. And then suddenly we're looking at that going, that's a substantial figure now, and we really need to lean into value, which is kind of helpful for FreeAgent given what was discussed earlier. Yep. So definitely think that is something that is happening. I definitely think that fintech is leaning into the implementation side of things a little bit more now that initial 15 years of kind of land grab has maybe happened. The ones I see that are really making this stuff stick almost always seem to have some element of community. So
I 100% agree.
Go Proposal was a good example. They did really, really well. And they had a community that I've heard from so many people was incredibly helpful. James and his his thoughts on pricing, and that is always a perennial problem. The guys at ProNation, Digital Disruptors, there's these types of communities that are springing up in various different ways. It'd be churlish of me not to mention our community. So we implemented a community a couple of months ago.
What's the FreeAgent community called?
It's called FreeAgent Accountants and Bookkeepers. It's on Facebook. It's only available to FreeAgent partners who are bronze level and above. So it's kicked off nicely. The guys at ProNation, so Will and Lucy and Martin in the background, are hosting it for us, so we can keep it completely about practice issues, not about here's FreeAgent's webinar that's coming up, here's a new FreeAgent feature release, what do you think about FreeAgent? It's not about that at all. It's about how can we do better in our practice, right?
I have another question for you. I'm going to interrupt.
Go for it.
What are your thoughts on AI?
Interesting. So I think that the Dunning-Kruger effect of, you must be familiar with that graph, and if not, then I'm sure I can send it to you. I did a post on it once. It drops back down into the, the peak boom of, and then the valley of uncertainty. I can't remember how it was, but I think
I can't remember, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I think that AI has been around for a long time. Me and Craig Clark, our director of product, we've done a bunch of talks on this. I come at it from a practical perspective of almost zero knowledge, and Craig comes at it from a product perspective of a lot more knowledge. But ultimately, I think that ChatGPT became the poster child for for large language models and being able to do all this sort of cool stuff that you need to interact with generative AI. Which 100% has its uses and is phenomenal when harnessed correctly to help ideate and create en masse things that didn't exist previously. I think that where AI is at its best is when it's embedded into something and it just sort of works in the background magically. You don't have to learn anything. You just switch something on and it enhances the experience that was already there. No doubt that it's going to form huge parts of how the industry plays out over the course of the coming months and years, and I think dealt with correctly is a huge advantage to any business, not just accountants, bookkeepers, or tech, right? But the thing I would always say is that, like, start with your problem and find a solution for that problem that may or may not involve AI. Like, don't start with the solution and go looking for a problem, because you just end up with wasted time and wasted expense. So fascinates me. I think it's fantastic. If you want to check out people on the subject, go and check out Billy McLaughlin's Fried AI, any of Jason Stats' stuff. There's plenty of people out there, and we are doing a talk on it at Accountex on day 2. So myself, Craig, and Billy are going to be getting into sort of how you might go about this stuff in your firm. Like, what are the thoughts that you should be having? How should you sort of mentally model this stuff out? So a lot of hype, but a lot of cool stuff embedded in there. My pal John Jenkins, I asked him if he was going to any of the events this year. He said, "No, I'm not going, Tone. Too much AI. I can't go with it."
I mean, it has been talked about a lot, and I think there's been a lot of reluctance for it to be implemented for more advanced features. That's my understanding.
Yeah, we've been doing it. I mean, it's been around for a while, right? And a long time. We've had it embedded into FreeAgent as a categorization engine since 2020. About 65% of our transactions are categorized by AI. You could switch it off if you didn't do it how you like it. But, across millions of transactions, that's a lot of time saved. But it just works in the background. And often, people don't recognize it as AI because it's not something they have to interact with. It just does it for them automatically. So, big thing. Obviously, the hype's there for a reason, but just start with a problem and find a solution, not the other way around.
We are almost at the end of our hour.
We are.
Thank you for joining me. 2 things before we sign off.
Yes.
Please think of a golden nugget to drop on everybody. And second thing, do you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions for you? I guess when are we doing our 3rd installment? Will probably be 2025 gig. But how are you, man? Like, are you well?
I'm all right. Yeah.
You good?
Eat, good. Sleep, repeat, work. Like, just chilling.
Just chilling.
Enjoying event season because it's way more fun for me than it is for you.
No, mate, I love event season. Like,
it's harder work for you than it is for me. Like,
there's a lot of work that goes into it. But it's it's great fun. I love sort of treading the boards and getting to talk to everybody and having those conversations that you don't otherwise get to have because it's always busy.
Yeah. Your final nugget, sir. Your drop of nugget. Your wisdom. We're gonna go out. I've got my finger hovered over the end stream button. Once you finished it, we'll sign off.
I'm struggling. Normally, I've got like several things that I've consumed or not consumed.
You can keep recently. You'd be like, don't eat yellow snow. Don't eat yellow snow. Boom, done.
Yeah, no. So there was I follow this guy quite closely called Jay Klaus, and he runs a thing called Creator Science, and he interviewed a guy called Richard Vanderblom recently about LinkedIn. And then my nugget is, if anyone wants to up their LinkedIn game to current, then go listen to that podcast. It's it's a cracking listen, lots of insight, and I'm sure you'll take plenty from it. So
thank you.
you're welcome, mate.